Hey, Minifash. It is the 10th of October, 2023, 10:10. I do pray you're well. Wanted to share something with you here. I've been working on something that I've just been led to lately, pertaining mainly to the financial system. You know, the BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard connections and all those things. Well, some very, very interesting things have come of that, and I'm not quite prepared to do a full video. But this morning, just a very interesting set of circumstances. As every morning, I get a random Bible verse, and that is something that I will study in the morning and before I go about my day. And this morning, it was Psalm 133. Only 3 verses. But it talks about the dew of Hermon and the dew that descended. And there's so much to this that, confirms to my notes and the things that I've been being led to. And I know it looks like a bunch of gurgly gook, but there's a lot of research here that this is what I'm led to do. But this morning, on the sidebar on YouTube, was a Rob Skiba video. And we got to go to the Google Maps to show you this stuff. And he's talking about Mount Hermon. Well, this is just crazy. And again, I really do hope to get to a full video on this, but I have to share this with you firstly, I think. And again, the financial system, the whole deal with the BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. You have State Street, Boston, which I've shown you this line many times that runs from the Boston Bunker Hill Monument obelisk down to the Washington, D.C. obelisk monument. Okay? And along that line, that 396 long line, I've shown you Tesla Corner is exactly intersected. But I don't want to get off on those rabbit trails. I just want you to understand that Vanguard in Philadelphia, BlackRock in New York City, and State Street in Boston, Massachusetts all sit within a very short distance of that line.
It may not be news to you that the largest companies in the world are controlled by a small number of investment funds. After all, the corporate world is a kind of labyrinth, an interconnected network where everyone seems to own everything. But that is only true up to a certain point. Together, these corporations form a sort of pyramid where smaller groups belong to larger ones. And at the top of this pyramid, the 3 largest investment funds stand out, exerting direct or indirect influence over the others. They are State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard. Together, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street have approximately $30 trillion in assets under management.
And as a side note, I do want to add that yesterday, October 9th, Yale University celebrated their 322nd year as an institution. Now think about that. Yale, the home of Skull and Bones 322, celebrated their 322 in 223. Okay? And remember also that the love of money is the root of all evil. Okay? Now I'm going to just show you this because this red line you see up here is an exact heading of that same line from obelisk to obelisk. I kid you not. And where does that line lead us? Right through England, right past London, all the way to Mount Hermon. Exact same heading, you guys. And all along the way, there are a plethora of things to talk about and to share with you. I'm just showing you this now because the way that this Rob Skiba video came across my path was just pretty unbelievable, to be honest with you. So I want you to check out this video and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Google Earth, I love playing with Google Earth. When the 200 angels came down to earth, this is where they landed. This is Mount Hermon in southern Lebanon. Now, there's a guy by the name of David Flynn who's done some extraordinary research on this, and there's a picture of Mount Hermon today. If you go on Google Earth, you can put a marker there at that location. What's 1/3 of 100? 33.33%, right? That location is 33.33 degrees north by 33.33 degrees east from the Paris prime meridian, which used to be the true prime meridian before they changed it for political reasons. And if you go back and look at the history of the Paris prime meridian, it's also known as the Devil's Line for people who practice ley lines and the occult and all that kind of stuff. Now, David Flynn was the one that kind of picked this up, but you can go on Google Earth and check it for yourself. That's what I did. You'll see the location there if you can read that. The longitude is 35.54, but if you subtract the difference between the Greenwich, because that's from Greenwich, if you subtract the difference, you get 33.33 on the Paris. So that's the Paris prime meridian. There's something going on there. It's a very interesting conversation took place at the base of Mount Hermon, right here. Caesarea Philippi is where at the end of Jesus' ministry, he took his disciples and he says, "Who do men say that I am?" That was a strategic location because right there is the altar of the Greek god Pan. Pan was the Greek god of shepherds. So the good shepherd stood in front of the Greek god of shepherds and said, "Hey, who do people say that I am?" "Oh, some say Elijah, some say Jeremiah." No, Peter understood. Just off to the right of that location where Pan was is a foothill, and at the top of this foothill is the fortress of Nimrod. The first Antichrist who tried to create a one-world system without God. In fact, his desire was to kill God. If you're looking at the altar of Pan, Nimrod's fortress is to the right, to the left, is this location right here, which is the gates of Hades. He was standing right next to the gates of Hades when he said, "The gates of Hades will not prevail." He was standing right next to it. You can go there today. I've always maintained Hades is not just a place, it's the brother of Zeus. 6 days later, Scripture says that Yeshua took Peter, James, and John to the top of a high mountain. Well, Mount Hermon is by far the highest mountain in the region. They're in the area anyway, so most scholars believe, as I do, that is the location of the Mountain of Transfiguration, where today there is a UN radar outpost sitting on top of it. Right across from a cross that people have set up as the location believed to be where the Mountain of Transfiguration took place. What's the UN doing with a UN radar outpost on top of the spot where the fallen angels landed? I understand the strategic location, Syria and all of that, I get it. But from that location, they can look right down into the valley to the very location where the 200 watchers came in the days of Noah, or days of Jared, I should say, right? Pre-flood world. Genesis chapter 6.
Now, I have to interrupt here. I will leave a link to the full unedited video, but if you think about what he's saying, Genesis 6, I want to point out that in Genesis 6:11, it tells us the earth was corrupt before God and filled with violence. Now, that mention of violence is the first mention in the Bible. It's the Hebrew word H2555, and it literally is pronounced Hamas. So I just wanted to point that out and have you think about that a little bit, because it's pertinent to our current situation.
Yeshua could look down, and the UN can look down there today. Why did he bring his disciples there to ask that question? I could never understand that, because he gets so excited when Peter says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." You read Yeshua's response, right? He gets so excited. I'm like, why is he so excited about that? When the day he was born, angels declared he was the Son of God, right? As he got older, everybody told him he was the Son of God. He picks Nathanael to be a disciple, and he says, "You are the Son of God." He says, "Why? Because I saw you under the fig tree?" You're going to see greater things than that. Every time the demons possessed people saw him, they threw themselves on the ground and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And he told them to be quiet. So from the day he was born and all through his life and all through his ministry, people told him he was the Son of God. So what's the big deal when Peter says it at the end of his ministry? His destination was Jerusalem. He takes a massive detour and goes all the way up to the top of Israel, to the base of Mount Hermon in southern Lebanon, northern Israel, parks in front of the Greek god of shepherds, says, "Who do men say that I am?" Some say Jeremiah, some say Elijah, some say one of the prophets. Oh, see, he understood the book of Enoch. That's clear. We saw that in the other scriptures, right? You are the Christ, the Son of the living God, not the son of Zeus. Oh, yeah, that's right, Peter. And upon this rock I'm going to build my church. Not these rocks behind me. That was an altar that looked very similar to Petra, like a city in the rock. It was a big embedded, place in the rock for Pan. It says that from that point on, after he left from that experience right there, it says he went preaching about his death, burial, and resurrection. And he headed straight from there to Jerusalem, where he would go 15 rounds with the devil, so to speak, and still be standing when it was over. That's why he took him to Caesarea Philippi. Because that location, remember the first prophecy in the Bible, the seed of Eve will crush the devil's head. So the attempt was made on Mount Hermon. So right before the big fight, Yeshua went to the very spot where that plan was hatched to try to prevent him from existing in the first place. He looked down and said, yeah, I got your number, Nimrod. Pan. I believe that this revelation is something we need to get for such a time as this. What did he say? Upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. The gates of Hades. What's a gate? Something goes in and out of. Something's coming back through the gates of Hades. What's the fourth horse? The fourth horseman of the apocalypse. Pale horse, its rider is death. What follows him? Hades. What does that mean? That means Tartarus is going to be opened up in the last days. That is a description of the Nephilim army. It's the locusts that come out of the bottomless pit in Revelation chapter 9. And the description, they don't look like anything like people. The 200 million man army of Revelation are the 200 million locusts that are coming out of the gates of Hades. But if we understand this revelation, they will not overcome it. Us. Well, you got to understand it first, right? You got to know what you're fighting, right?
Like he says, you got to know what you're fighting. And we know right now all the fighting going on here in Israel. And it's my belief that that will, in fact, start to foment in the north as well, in the Golan, Lebanon, Mount Hermon region. And there's so much to this. This line right here, where it goes through this section, this was the first place that the gospel of Jesus Christ, by the hands of Paul, actually entered the Western world for the first time. And it's this exact line. I even superimposed a image of Paul's journeys over this. And if I show you this, it's just amazing to me. See, if I bring that in, those lines, that image you're seeing there were the travels of Paul. And this was the literal first time that the gospel came to the Western world. Just think about that. I find that absolutely amazing. And it's right along that same line that goes from Mount Hermon over to the Washington Monument in an exact straight line, according to Google Earth. So I really wanted to share that with you guys, and God willing, I will share the rest of this because, if you have Google Earth, you got to check this stuff out for yourself because it's uncanny. And it shows us, just like Rob said, you got to know who you're fighting. So I was compelled to share this with you today. God bless each and every one of you. Peace and grace to you. Many fish.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God,